It's a one-stop shop once somebody's been the victim of a violent crime. So all the best of the best are housed there. This victim doesn't have to be re-victimized and traumatized over and over. They tell their story one time.
Hello and welcome to Shop Talk, where we talk about what's going on in law enforcement and the Scottsdale PD. Now here are your hosts, Chief Jeff Walther and Sergeant Kevin Kwan.
Hey, Kevin.
Hi.
How are you?
Fantastic.
We are on episode 15 of Shop Talk already. I know. I think in 14 and 13, maybe 12, 11 and 10, I was surprised. I'm like, wow, I can't believe it's been this many episodes already. And my trusty sidekick, Sergeant Kevin Kwan, is here. I'm Chief Jeff Walther, and excited to be with our listeners again this month. Going to have another great conversation. But before we get into that, weather's cooling down.
Yeah. Thank God, finally.
Halloween is right around the corner.
Yep.
What are you dressing up as?
Haven't decided yet. We usually do a kind of a family theme.
Yeah.
Because of the five of us.
You're going to dress up as a golfer and do a hole-in-one?
Oh, not again.
Oh,
Can't do that one.
Can't help it. We're getting close to that as well.
Yeah,
right.
Season,
Getting close to our super event season. So exciting. I'm glad the weather's cooling down a little bit. People are going to open up their windows. Make sure if you're going to open up your windows, be safe about it. We had hate to be a Debbie Downer on this, but we had a recent stranger sexual assault related to an Arcadia door being open, and because the weather's beautiful. And here in the police department, we are not victim shaming. What we are doing is we are talking about what we should be talking about, security measures in the real world today. And so be careful. I'd say keep your Arcadia doors closed and locked. If you're going to open up a window, I always prefer it to be an upper floor window, if at all possible, to allow some of that cool air to come in. But the weather is beautiful. And it's only going to get better over the next several weeks now that we're in mid or toward the end of October. So excited about that. Let's also talk about, since it's Halloween, I get a lot of questions about Halloween safety.
Yeah.
Right? Be visible. Take care of the littles. Make sure that we're catching them before they get into the street. The one question I get a lot is about candy.
Mm-hmm. All the time.
And, so especially right now, you've seen a number of news stories related to fentanyl and colored fentanyl, rainbow colored fentanyl. And does it look like, somebody said, I think it looks like Skittles. No, Skittles has the hard candy shell on the outside. But you could see how a kid would pick that up and say, it's a Smartie.
Yep, exactly.
Sweet tart, something like that. So
We always use the rule, if it's not wrapped, don't eat it.
Right.
And the fentanyl would not be wrapped, right?
Exactly. And that's actually what I talk about with my kids is, and my grandkids is, if it's wrapped, it's not open, it's not cut, it doesn't appear to have been open, I think you're going to be pretty safe with wrapped candy. And people are like, well, what about, I remember 2 decades ago, I heard about somebody put a razor blade in a Snickers bar. Okay.
Yeah, 2 years.
I think that happened.
I think that was like 4 decades ago.
I think that happened one time somewhere.
Back east.
But the incidents of people really sabotaging your candy are pretty rare. Now, if Mrs. Kravitz next door gives you an apple, maybe you don't eat that. Candy safety, costume safety,
window safety, which I call prevention.
Yes,
not shaming.
Absolutely,
that's prevention of sexual assault.
Yep. Good stuff.
We talk a lot about our crime prevention officers that will go out and have assessments, right? Talk about your foliage is too high, or hey, put a light here, because it's that physical deterrent. When you're trick or treating too, it's have multiple flashlights with you. Rely on that, like extra lights, because cars come down the streets that they normally don't see a bunch of people walking with dark costumes. The visibility is terrible. So the whole concept that relates to your house still relates to you in the dark walking.
Yes. It's interesting. You talk about foliage and things like that, or Jessica, you talked about windows and windows open prevention. When I came on the police department 28 years ago, we talked a lot about CPTED, crime prevention through environmental design, right? That was a big push back then. And windows open or closed, or if you're going to allow some some of the cool night air in. Great, open your window about half,
right,
and then put a wooden dowel in to prevent that window from opening all the way. You could even do that with your Arcadia door. Open it, 6-8 inches, put a wooden dowel in it to prevent it from opening any further. That's crime prevention through environmental design. Foliage, trimming your trees back, making sure that you have lights, making sure that you're not a victim on the streets, walking in well-lit areas, locking your car, not putting things on the seat. We do a lot of talking about that.
I think even with Halloween, I think it's dangerous to pretend that we don't live in the world we live in. And
agreed.
And so we have to do things like close our windows. And I wish we lived in a world where I could leave all my windows open. And I wish we lived in a world where I could go grocery shopping at night, but we don't. And so, again, I don't think that's victim shaming. I think that's prevention.
I
and unfortunately, the way we have to live. And same with Halloween and trick-or-treating with your babies. I wish we didn't live in a world where I had to watch every man and see if he was by himself. And I think that's the key. Look for, just like any other day, what's weird, A man trick-or-treating by himself is not normal.
Right.
And so keep an eye out for that.
What's out of place here.
Right, yeah. And so I think on Halloween, you just do what you do every other time. And unfortunately, that is the world we live in.
It's interesting, Jessica, that I talked about this message. We did a big active shooter scenario at Cocoa Paw Middle School a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And I was talking to all of our actors who were parents and teachers and administrators at Scottsdale Unified School District. And one of the things that I shared with them is I opened up with, I'm sorry that you're here. Yeah. I'm sorry that we have to do this, but we have to. This is the world we live in today. And I don't know, I think I got some odd looks when I said, and I know even this scenario and participating and acting in the scenario where there was fake blood and shots fired and all of this and kids down can be traumatic in and of itself.
Sure.
But get over it.
Yeah.
We have to work through this together. And so you bring up, I think, some great points. One last thing before we get into talking about Winged Hope and all the great work that you do is between now and our next episode, the midterm elections will also be here. So just want everybody, remind everybody, get out and do your civic duty, vote, do great things, but let's treat each other with dignity and respect at the polls, around the polls, have some concern about our polls, the safety of our poll workers. We seem to be, and we've talked about this in past episodes, we seem to be incredibly divided. There are a lot of reasons for that. I'm not going to get into the politics of that. This is not a political show, and I'm not a political candidate. I'm your police chief. I'm apolitical in my role as a police chief. I'm most interested in safety as you exercise your civic duty to vote. Let's just treat each other with dignity and respect. If we all followed that principle, I think we'd get along a lot better, and we'd have a lot less crime in Scottsdale, a lot less crime in the valley, the state, and the country.
Thanks, Chief. We're all looking forward to Halloween and dressing up this year. Did you ever go trick-or-treating dressed as a police officer? Well, guess what? This is no trick. Applications for police officers are open now for new and lateral positions. Visit ScottsdalePD.com to learn all about joining our family. You've already heard a little bit from our guest today. She's a passionate advocate for child abuse prevention, awareness, and treatment. A survivor herself, she founded Winged Hope Family Advocacy Foundation in January of 2013. Dedicated to serving victims of family violence and trauma since its inception, Winged Hope has provided direct services or training to over 55,000 people around the state of Arizona and is the recipient of the Arizona Attorney General's 2018 Arizona Crime Victims' Rights Week Award for their work with victims of violence. For 26 years, audiences in schools, conferences, law enforcement, and more have been inspired by her journey of resiliency and hope. She shared her goal of impacting survivors of family violence and trauma worldwide. Please welcome to Shop Talk, Jessica Nicely.
And welcome, Jessica.
Thank you.
We're excited to have you, and we're going to get into a lot of good discussions about you, your background, Winged Hope, what you do, the demographic, and the people that you serve so well. So welcome, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks. Wow, there's a lot to tell. I've been doing what I've been doing for as long as you have. So, but I'm a survivor of of child abuse and witnessing domestic violence. And I often say that I feel like I came out of it relatively healthy. I do a lot of training on adverse childhood experiences. Yep. And if you're familiar with ACEs, I'm a 9 out of 10. And so statistically, I should be, drug addict.
Right. Curled up in a fetal position somewhere.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. And I'm not. And so I really have just felt like it's my responsibility, having survived all that I did relatively healthy, to help others survive it. And so, and I've been fortunate that I have a husband who works hard. And so I've been able to do everything voluntarily for 26 years.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to say that Winged Hope has no paid employees. And we were told at the beginning that's not sustainable. And I'm proud to say that we've done it for 10 years and we're going into our 11th year.
That's awesome.
With no paid employees, so that every donation we get goes right back to serving victims.
Which is totally unheard of, right? I mean, I love when people tell you can't do something. Yeah. And then more than a decade later, you're like, I'm still doing it.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And, and I appreciate that not everybody's able to do that. And I'm very grateful that I'm able to do that and in that position. But as long as I'm able to do it, I will always do it because it's the right thing to do.
Well, kudos to you. I think today, especially in today's world, where we have, I think, a lot of intersectionality between victimhood. I'm a victim of this or I'm a victim of that. And that seems to be almost a rallying cry today of I'm a victim of, and then check this box, right?
Right.
And then it's often used as a reason why I can't do something or why I should be given extra or special privilege because of this, and this. So you bring so many, and we've met before, and we've met at our Family Advocacy Center. We've had conversation, and you just are almost that poster child, literally, of somebody who has gone through extreme trauma in their life and rises above it, and then uses that trauma as a springboard to a life's mission and a life passion. And it's so awesome. And that's what, I look at so many who've been in an unfortunate circumstance of victimization. I'll use my own and share just my own. So, I'm the adult child of an alcoholic, an extreme alcoholic. In growing up, I used to joke around with my dad that when he had, I was 34 years old, he had 17 years of sobriety, and I said, "Hey, Dad, you've been sober exactly half my life." The wrong half, but at least it was half. And so, all of us go through some level of trauma, and to see how you've risen above that, not only how you've risen above that, but you've created a whole helping mechanism. You've created something that has benefited thousands of people, and that's taking that victim experience and turning into something wonderfully positive. And so, anyway, I think it's amazing.
Thank you. My daddy was also an alcoholic, and that's actually where a lot of my healing started. And I think that's part of why I'm healthy. I started healing while I was living in it. So I went to children of alcoholic groups in high school. I didn't know that. And then went home to him. So I can appreciate that. And I think really the way that I always looked at it was, I think you can deal with your past and you can deal with your traumas without dwelling on them. And so I think that's where people get stuck. And again, doesn't mean you don't heal from it. You don't, work through your trauma, but that can't be everything. And I get that it feels like it needs to be. And again, I walk with victims every day. Yeah. And when you're in the hurricane and the storm of it, it feels like you're never going to think about anything else. But it's a lot like grief. At first it feels like you're never going to get over your grief and you're always going to feel sad. And then you go to the grocery store and you start to do normal things. And it's very similar trauma and healing from it. Like, you have to keep doing those other things. You have to keep moving forward or else you won't heal. And it's an ongoing process. Yeah. I mean, again, as an adult survivor of a child alcoholic, like there are things I'm sure that might still trigger you sometimes, but again, you can think about it for a minute and then you just don't dwell on it.
Well, you were far smarter than I was, because I just avoided them. When I was a teenager, while you were going to, getting some great assistance, I just avoided the whole thing. And I like to say, I kind of joke around, almost the Bruce Willis, bad cop thing. I just tried to bury that down until much later on in life, when I was a young cop, and my wife said, I think you need to go use some of your 12 free sessions, which is a line we used to use back in the 90s about psychological services that the city and the PD offered. She's like, time for you to go use some of your 12 free sessions, because there's something wrong with you more than just the normal everyday wrong that she loves. And so, use some of those, many of those 12 free sessions, and had a V8 moment and said, oh, yeah, I now know why.
But that's good. Yeah. See,
and I had a V8 moment. Yeah.
And that is what healing is. I mean, like it's understanding that it affects you in different ways that you don't even realize it's affecting you. I do think too, again, I really, really try to see the glass half full. And I feel like that's how you can become a healthy survivor. Yeah. So I know that lots of people, like, I've read things like, stop shaming me for being sad. And it's like, no, that's not what we're doing. Yeah. I know from personal experience and from having walked with literally thousands of victims that if you do focus on what's good and you do focus on what's right, you will be healthier in the long run. It is better for you. I mean, just physically, there's science that shows that if you're sad and depressed, it just doesn't work. So focusing on what's good. And as survivors of and adult children of alcoholics, we learn some good skills too. Like, it's funny that you're a police officer and like what I do, and I'm able to really read people. Like, we can read people like nobody else. Yeah. Like, everyone's always like, you should be a profiler. Like, I can walk in and read somebody immediately because we had to do that. And so again, while growing up, that was a negative. It's turned into a real positive. Yeah. Like, we can walk in, I can read somebody immediately because we had to.
100%.
We had to immediately read him to see, like, should I say something out loud?
Yes.
Like, should I laugh at that joke? No. Like, should I even be in the room right now? And
that is so true because we would wait to see, okay, he's been out. Okay. Right. How hammered is he? Right. Or can we have a conversation? It's family dinner and he's been tying one on. Maybe I don't make this joke. Right. And you learn so spot on. Right. You learn to read him. And I was fortunate in that he was mostly a happy-go-lucky guy, but disappeared, gone all the time, had a pretty extreme temper, and you couldn't, you were trying to dodge. He was a heavy smoker, trying to dodge the cherry on the end of the cigarette, and as he's yelling at you, and that cigarette is bouncing up and down in front of your face, I'm like, oh boy, this is gonna go south here real quick. Yeah. So I will say kudos to my wife way back then for saying something's wrong here, because just getting that help that I needed, talking that out, figuring those things out, made me a better husband, a better father, a better human being. And I would not be the chief of police today had I not gone through that, because it made me a better leader and gave me greater understanding of other people around me, including those that I was dealing with on the street. So shout out to her.
That's right. And shout out to my friend Susan, because you say that I'm smart, and it wasn't me. It was actually her. She was my best friend growing up, and her home was my sanctuary. Like, I could actually spend the night, and I'm sure you had that too, like a safe place to be where there was no one screaming. My daddy was an angry drunk. He was not. He was always angry. Yeah. He was angry sober. And so being in a home that was just safe and happy, and like, we didn't have family dinners. That wasn't a thing. But at her house we did, and just the normalcy that they provided me with. And she was the one who knew everything that was going on. Yeah. And one day she said to me, Jess, this problem is bigger than me. We got to find somebody that can help you. Yeah. And so
good for her.
Yeah. So it was actually at a family dinner. This is what my family dinners looked like. And like, we really didn't have a lot. This time my sister had already gone to college, and we're sitting at the table, me, my stepmom, and my daddy. And again, he was drunk 24/7. He was also an insomniac. So he literally just drank all the time. And he was a full-time alcoholic for the last 10 years I lived with him. He didn't even have a job. He just literally drank all day. And so we're at the dinner table, and I had like a wrap shirt on. And he reaches over and just rips my shirt open at dinner. And, I'm like, what are you doing? And he said, Well, Chris, that's my stepmom. Chris thought I was mad at her, and I just thought I should have you be mad at me instead.
What?
Yeah, and no, there's no logic to what he does. So then I called Susan that night and was like, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. And she said, okay, let's find someone. So that next morning, I went and saw Patty Doyle, a school counselor, and she connected me with the groups. And mandatory reporting had just become a thing then. And to be honest, I'm grateful she didn't report it because I was old enough that I wasn't ready to go into foster care and be with a new family that could have been worse. But yeah, I mean, it started my healing, and I started to talk through things. And she actually was the one we talked a little bit before about my daddy killing himself eventually. And she had said to me, prepare yourself for the day he succeeds in killing himself. And I remember at the time thinking that was kind of mean. I was like, oh, but it saved me.
Right, because he had tried a couple times before.
Many times, yeah. And then, it was 10 years after my time with her that he succeeded. But I had done what she said and kind of prepared myself that was coming and what that would look like and feel like. And it is different when someone dies and you've had a strained relationship, right? It's not the same kind of grief. And then suicide also just brings a whole other level of, shame. And So again, I just wanted to give kudos to the people in my life and the lights in my life that directed me that way, because it wasn't all me.
I will give kudos to my dad. He's not with us anymore, but he died in 2020. But he ultimately recognized after we were kicking him out and said, "Okay, I have a problem," and then got sober, and then that completely turned his life around. He became just a completely different person.
Yeah.
So
my daddy was sober for about on and off for like 2 years. And he was a complete, like you said, different human being. He was funny. Like he was just a different person. Like we actually literally, talk about laughing because we actually weren't allowed to laugh in my house. Like if you laughed, you got, and like I can still remember a time I laughed and I got hit for laughing. I remember a time I was too happy about a Christmas present.
Gosh.
Like,
is there such a thing as being too happy? Right, it's like too much money.
Yeah. So I had to monitor like my level of joy. And he was different, like the kind of guy he was, my whole life. And then when he tried to be sober, it didn't really work. But he tried, and I got to see glimpses of who he could have been. And it was nice to have that because I don't have good memories of childhood. I don't get to look back, but and I was already gone. I was out of the house by the time he tried to get sober, but it was nice to have that. So I'm glad you got so many years of that. Yeah,
he got sober in 1987.
Wow.
When I was 17, and he was sober up until the day he died in 2020 at 78.
Wow.
So
that's amazing. Yeah. So good for your daddy.
Yeah, I think we were able to work through some issues over that time period that I think helped us both.
Yeah, and I think that's a healing thing too. And I think, again, something that I was able to do that I would encourage people to do if you can. I was really honest with my daddy before he died, and was able to say to him, like, I love you and I'll always love you, because he stayed. My real mom left when I was 8 months old, and he raised us and tried.
Right.
Not succeeding very often, but he tried, right? And he stayed. And, but I said, I don't like you, and here's why. And I started to talk through some of the things that he had done, like that incident at the table. Yeah. He didn't remember any of them because he was a blackout drunk too. Yeah. So, he didn't remember any of them, and he was devastated, and he was sad, and he was remorseful, and he apologized. And I think that helped in my being able to forgive him. But he was alive when I was Miss Arizona and traveling the state talking about
we hadn't
being
even
a survivor.
To that yet.
Oh yeah. But he was alive, but we got to have conversations, and he understood, like, because English was his second language. He was Iranian. And so he would say, like, so you're going to tell everybody I'm a bad dad. And I got to tell him, no, that's not at all what it is. Yeah. It's to share with everybody that there's hope, and that it doesn't last, especially for the children, that it doesn't last forever. And that, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and just to be positive about it. And so he was happy about it. Like, he encouraged me. He came to Miss USA. And when he died, I had sent him like articles when I was in the newspaper, and he had all of them in a box. So, and I share that because some of his family is still angry with me 26 years later.
Why?
Yeah. They don't, this happens a lot. We see this a lot with sexual assault too. They don't want to believe that this guy was a bad guy, and they don't want to believe that he could possibly do those things. And my daddy did try some sexual stuff at the very, very end, and again, didn't remember any of it.
Wow.
It started with that shirt ripping.
Yep.
Because again, what dad would do that with his daughter?
Right.
But some of his family members still really struggle. And they'll still make little comments at the end of my social media posts like, what are you talking about? He was a great dad. And, and I'm sad for them that they haven't healed in all this time and haven't been able to wrap their brains around the fact that this is what it is. And I think it's important because this is why I think bad guys get off so often. This is why, it gets all the way to court and then a jury decides, oh no, he's a really great guy, and my daddy wasn't. My daddy really was angry all the time. Like there was no front for him. Like people were afraid to come to our house because he'd chase you down the street with a gun. Like that was real because that happened. And so, even with him, people struggle to believe like, no, he couldn't have done those things. So when they are that really great guy, everybody struggles to believe because it is hard to believe that, and nobody wants to think that's a real thing and that people do these awful things, but they do. And
I struggle with people. You see it all the time. I struggle with people who, from the outside looking in, say, "Oh, my neighbor," before they do after they do a mass shooting or they have people buried in their basement. Oh no. I'm their neighbor. They were a great guy. They really helped me with my yard work. Or, no, that's my son, daughter, son-in-law, whatever. And they were a wonderful person. Unless you lived in that household, you've got no idea.
That's right.
What they're like.
That's right. And especially, I think, with sexual assault, because we were talking about that at the beginning, that's sort of their MO. They have to be a really great guy to be able to get in, to
it's
be
a facade.
able, to be able to groom you as parents and to be able to groom your children. Like, so whenever I hear someone say someone's a really great guy, and maybe this makes me jaded, but like that's a red flag to me now. Whenever someone's like, he's a really great guy, I'm like, oh, I'll be the judge of that.
We're going to go do Chief Walter's podcast. He's a really great guy. Oh boy, we better take a look at this one.
I'm going to read him as soon as I get it.
So let's talk about Winged Hope. Or let's have you talk about Winged Hope and all the great stuff you do in Winged Hope with family advocacy centers and the great and kind of that connectivity. Then segue into that and that connectivity you have with Scottsdale and ScottsdalePD, if you would.
So I started Winged Hope actually after serving 8 years. I was a volunteer on a foster care review board, and we had a case that came in. Dad had sexually assaulted his daughter, who for years and years. It came out. The FBI was even involved. Like, it was a big case. And he had said and was caught on tape saying that his plan was to next sexually assault his other daughter, who was intellectually disabled. And somehow this guy is sitting across the table from me at this foster care review board and trying to convince us that he should have, visits with his children, rights to his children. Wow. And so at that time, I had been doing this for a long time and knew some people, and I made some calls and was like, what's happening? Like, how is this guy even out? Like, how is he not in jail? How is he sitting across the table from me? Like, how does he have rights when, like, he's been caught on camera? Yeah. And I said, what do we need to do? And so I made some calls, and I got connected with Cindy Nanetti, who was a longtime prosecutor, who prosecuted some of the worst crimes you've ever seen in Arizona on TV. And she's a judge now. But I had a meeting with her, and she said to me, we need more family advocacy centers. And at the time, I didn't even know what those were. I had done prevention for so long, and then immersed myself in this world. And so I looked into them and was like, this is an amazing concept. Why aren't there more of these? And I started Winged Hope really with the goal of opening a Southeast family advocacy center. And we met for a year with chiefs and, had this great plan. And then it ended up that everybody started making their own. Yeah. But the original goal was to build one big one and then to support the existing ones, because I just think the concept of a family advocacy center is just so important. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is that's listening, it's essentially, this is the easiest way to explain it. It's a one-stop shop once somebody's been the victim of a violent crime. So all the best of the best are housed there. Yep. This victim doesn't have to be re-victimized and traumatized over and over. They tell their story one time. And
they can have an exam there.
Oh, as well. Medical exam happens there. So all these things that now, and pre-COVID, we would say like it would take weeks to get to all these different appointments and things if you didn't have an FAC. But post-COVID, I would say it would take months for you to be able to do this. And instead, this process is a few hours long. And so, yeah, so that's really why I started Winged Hope, because of my love for FACs and I just was amazed by the concept and just feel like why doesn't everybody have one of these? So
they're trying.
Yeah,
you see a lot now.
They are now.
They've sprung up, and I don't even know what the number is now in the valley. It's
22. We have 22 around the state of Arizona.
Around the state, yeah.
Wow.
And in the valley, in fact, we had some discussion about the numbers, and the numbers keep going up. It's 7, 8, somewhere around there, some in the valley, and a couple new ones coming online.
Yeah,
right?
Gilbert's coming
online.
Yep, I've heard talk of Tempe.
Yeah.
And so now we almost have too many, is what I've been hearing, and like they're struggling to get enough sexual assault nurses.
That was the discussion that I was in with other chiefs in the valley of, do they have enough staffing? And there's not enough staffing, especially when you talk about pediatric doctors and so
specifics,
right. And so I know we're on the Scottsdale FAC, we're doing really well in terms of our staffing. So
and you guys have most of the saints housed here, which is great,
right.
and it was such a joy to get to come and remodel. So that's one of my favorite things to do, is to remodel FACs and make the space more comfortable. And on the outside looking in, it feels like we're just making a pretty space, but really we're making a space for victims to come in and immediately take a deep breath and immediately calm down. And so when I would walk into like a PD, because we renovate police department interview rooms too, and walk into a PD or an FAC, I would think like, okay, let's say I was taken to one of these on my worst day growing up. Like, how would this space make me feel? And some of them would have made me feel way worse.
Yeah.
And that's not the goal, right? And also part of the goal really is to ensure that they disclose, because we want them to feel comfortable enough to disclose so that we can move forward with the process. And so the bad guy, and I say bad guy because he is a guy most of the time. The bad guy can go to jail and stay in jail. And so disclosure is a big piece of it. It's important. And so making sure that room is so comfortable for them and that they feel comfortable enough to disclose. So it was great to do that. And really, as a survivor, I didn't want to do victim services, to be honest. Like direct victim services was not on my radar, so much so that the first year that we provided direct victim services, I didn't even track it because I was like, oh no, this isn't what we do. But people kept reaching out to us, and I was like,
you're like, no, this is what we do.
And now that's what we do more than anything. And we serve about 100 victims a month, direct services. So that looks like really anything that a victim needs. And we fill the gap for a lot of agencies that, like, if there isn't funding for something, or there's something like right in that moment they're not able to do, like Mesa is obviously an amazing police department. And they're very well staffed and they do everything. But every once in a while, like, they don't have the funds to say fly a victim home because during the process of her rape trial, her dad died back home, right? And then flying her home to go to that, like things like that don't exactly fit the crime itself. And there might not be funding for, but we can help with that. And so I often tell the story because it's fall. And during the fall, it's appropriate. We had a little girl who came from DCS. She had been sexually assaulted at home. She was unfortunately sexually assaulted in her first foster placement. Went to a safe foster placement, was able to disclose. And so we were helping her and paying for some trauma-informed therapy for her, which is one of the services we offer. And but I, again, as a survivor, want to do the little things that I know bring joy. And so I said, what else would make her happy? And this little 5-year-old girl said she wanted fall boots. And so we bought her fall boots. You know, she probably saw a commercial. And so we bought her fall boots and we helped her get into some good trauma-informed therapy. So we walk with victims and do that. And then we do trainings. That's the third way we help all over the state. And I share my story when I'm asked to and when I feel like it's right. And just do trainings, again, everywhere. I love the adverse childhood experiences training because I feel like that covers all of it and all the different traumas that, you know, we could be addressing and really focus on prevention because I still love prevention, even though we're immersed in the aftercare. Prevention is important. I mean, what if we could prevent all these? Like, why wouldn't we focus on that? Right. And unfortunately, prevention is, I think, the first place when funding is running dry that it gets pulled from because you can't really, you don't know those stats. Like we don't know what we prevented, but
we don't know what we don't know.
Right. We just don't. And so, but it is so important. So we still focus on that as well.
Well, I definitely, you mentioned RFAC, and I appreciate that connectivity that you have with us, because we've had a family advocacy center for so long that it was time for some improvements and creating a more welcoming environment, right? Things get old after a while, and things get a little bit more run down. And I think it takes somebody with your eyes to look at it and say, you know what, you guys are doing a pretty good job here and have had an FAC for a long time, but we can do better. We can make this a more welcoming environment. And it's beautiful.
Oh, good.
It's beautiful. And it's just, it is a welcoming environment for those who've been severely traumatized. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate that partnership, because it just made us better. And we have a great budget, and we have a lot of resources in the PD and at the Family Advocacy Center. But that partnership with Winged Hope and several others has just made us that much better. So,
and I get that question sometimes too, from people, and sometimes from my own board, and sometimes from funders. Like, these are big cities. Like, why do you guys come in and do that? And I just feel like, if you think about like what we do and the piece that we do, I was just talking with the chief of Mesa last night about this. Our part, like the family violence piece and the family trauma, is just one tiny part of what you guys do.
Right.
And so there's only so much money, right? And there's only so much budget. And if we can help with that tiny piece, and then you guys can use that funding to actually do other things to help victims, like, why wouldn't we do that? And so I feel like it's just important for people to understand, like, and again, part of why I don't like for my team to be paid. Like, I think we live in this world where it's like, why doesn't someone else do that? Or why don't they do that?
Yeah,
and it's
somebody
like,
else's responsibility.
Right? And I feel like that's part of why I started Winged Hope, because I feel like, how come nobody's talking about FACs? How come nobody's, building more, helping the FACs? What's happening? And so I just feel like, we all need as a community to stop that mentality of, well, someone else will do that, because someone else won't.
Absolutely. That thought process and mentality is everywhere. I talk about that in sex trafficking and labor trafficking, that it's people turn a blind eye to it. It's that community. Yes. It's that community dirty little secret that, oh no, is that really going? Yeah, it's going on everywhere. And the Arizona and the Valley in particular. And I talk about Scottsdale numbers because we import 11, 12 million visitors annually, have major events. The Super Bowl, the game will be played in Glendale, but so many of the events will be here in Scottsdale, parties and resorts. And when I talk about sex trafficking, people are like, oh, can we talk about something else? Yeah. Isn't that somebody else's problem? When you talk about domestic violence and childhood trauma, it's, somebody else can deal with that, right? No.
I literally have people sometimes, as I talk about things, cover their ears. They literally cover their ears because they can't hear it. And it's like, if it's hard for you to hear, how hard do you think it is for these children, especially to be living this? And again, talking about trafficking and all that's coming to the Valley, one other thing that we do is we collaborate with other nonprofits. And so we're collaborating with the Arizona Anti-Trafficking Network and making sure that we're helping them. And again, me just as an individual, I'm going to give some time and do some of the prevention work that they're going to be doing before all these events come, because why wouldn't I do that? Right. And I think a lot of times, with volunteering and with helping, I do think it's gotten way better. Because back when I started speaking and started doing volunteer work, like, there wasn't a lot. I think it didn't happen as often, but now people want to volunteer, but they always want it to be fun, I think. Sure. And they want a shirt or, like,
they want a challenge coin.
Right. They want something. And I feel like, why, I feel like service is sacrifice. And so, you don't have to do it the way I do and sacrifice every single day, but like, I'm going to go and help these other nonprofits and sacrifice a Saturday, because that's what service is. Service is sacrifice. And I think, especially with you guys, the PD, you guys have, it's been maddening for me watching people speak unkindly of you all. Yes. And again, I shared my story. Like, the police weren't always the best for me growing up, but that's not how it is anymore. And that's not how every officer is. And the officers that I get to work with in my world sacrifice all the time. And I think people forget that. They don't think about, like, I mean, I'm sure you've both missed a birthday,
Uh-huh.
right? Or
Sporting
an anniversary,
event. Yep.
right? A concert or a recital.
Called out in the middle of a family
Right.
event, called out in the middle of a sporting event, called out in the middle of a day off.
That's right. And the sacrifices. And I think that's what service is. And I feel like people forget that and think like, well, this is their job, you know, and it's like, well, their job is constant sacrifice. And so I just feel like that's what service should be. For everybody. And also, again, I think that part of what happened and part of what like built up that really negative mentality was, you know, that's your job and you're supposed to do that. It's like, no, what if we all tried to make our world better? What if we all tried to prevent bad things from happening? You know, if everybody just did a little piece, what a different world we would live in. And I just wish that could be the mentality, but I do want to give a shout out to all of you officers because I know you guys sacrifice all the time. And I know what that feels like because I do it too. And it's, you know, it's hard to sacrifice all the time. And yeah, we don't get a pink shirt or, some fluffy, prize for doing it. And I think everybody wants to do that and then show it on social media and be like, look what I did. And when you serve and you help Winged Hope, you're not always going to be on social media. Usually you're not. If you're, helping us in the role with a victim, you're never going to get seen on social media. We're never going to talk about it because no one's ever going to know who that person was.
Not get seen on social media,
right?
Not get a mug, not get why do I, right? They think, why do I even want to go to that?
Right. And that's what I want. I wish we could change. I want to change that. I want people to know, like, again, and I think really part of why I am healthy as a survivor is because I have spent 26 years I've spent my entire adult life serving other people and helping other people. And I feel like that is part of what's helped me be healthy. And it's healing for me selfishly every time I do something. And I wish people could know what it does for you. Yes, you're going to miss a Saturday of sitting around the house, but what you're going to get back is immeasurable.
I'm going to bring that jaded person out of you here right now. Kevin, where's my soapbox? I gotta get up on it.
It's pretty tall.
Here we go. You're so right. And people don't want to know. Most people, and the numbers sadly are growing in this country and in the world. And we could talk a lot about social media and the narcissism of social media, but I've now found. And I welcome your comments if you disagree. I've now found that the vast majority of people who don't want to participate, it's because they choose to be willfully ignorant about what's going on out there. And so when you talk about law enforcement and the narrative on law enforcement, and we've talked about it many times on this show, there's a narrative that is supported by the willfully ignorant about what police officers do in this country and how they are the very foundational component and the backbone of this society, and that without the police and this idea of defund or shrink the police, fortunately, which has gotten zero traction in the state of Arizona, when you defund the police, you make them smaller, you remove that fabric of our society, chaos will reign. Chaos will reign. And for those people who say, no, if we got rid of police, we would all come together lovingly in this wonderful utopia. And I say, what planet are you living on? Because that's not where we're living right now. So it's the same for you. It's if I'm gonna be on social media, can I take a selfie? Am I gonna get a mug or a thermos or what? Challenge coin, T-shirt.
Yeah, I barely feed my my volunteers lunch. Yeah, actually, when we came and we did your project, you guys gave us pizza, which was nice because, I'm like, lunch, we don't have time for lunch. We're working. Yeah, like this is, a week of your life, sacrifice, give your time, and eat dinner when you go home. But you guys gave my volunteers lunch.
Good, I'm glad we fed you.
Yeah, they appreciated it.
One of the things that, like, in your organization that you see, talking about the mugs and all that stuff is we don't want accolades, right? We get the gratification when we see that the victim has gotten a little bit of closure, and I know that much with your guys' organization is walking with them steps, going through the court process, watching the healing process. Like that's why we do what we do. But just knowing like how much we try to show the public the little things that we're doing, it's exponentially higher that we're giving back to the community, you know?
Yeah.
Because we can't show all the things. And I wouldn't even have social media if I didn't have Winged Hope, but I have to be able to show what we do so that we can continue to get funding, right?
Yep.
But the things that are like the most beautiful moments I get to experience, I'll never get to share. Right. I'll share this because you won't know who she is, but I was invited to go to the baby shower of a rape victim, a young girl who got impregnated by her rapist. And she's decided to keep the baby, and she's moving forward as positively as she can with support. And they had a gender reveal party. But I mean, the emotions and like all the feelings behind that. But I got invited to that.
That's
You'll never see that on social media, right?
No,
You'll never. But like, it was one of the most beautiful moments I've ever gotten to experience, and it was so special that she asked me to be there.
Yeah.
And I mean, so many of the moments that are the real moments that are why we do what we do. No one ever gets to see or hear about because we can't, and we wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I long for the world to be a better place on a lot of levels, but I think just that tiny little change in people, like if you could just do the right thing because it's the right thing.
One person at a time.
Yeah. And again, like talking about defunding the police, and like when that was going on, I was like, there are all these NGOs can come in and help. I was like, that's me. I'm not running in. I'm not running in when this guy is holding a gun to her head. I'm not doing that. Because guess what? I've done that. I lived that life my whole childhood. It doesn't work out well. So when everyone's like, oh, we'll get them to do it. No. So again, it was that mentality of like someone else will do it. I mean, we have to stop that. Like we need more people to sacrifice, because that's what really caring for people is. It's sacrificing.
So help me and help our listeners understand kind of the process on when and where and in what capacity Winged Hope gets involved. Say, the PD, we're involved in a case, be it domestic violence, sexual assault, and they've been to the FAC, they've been interviewed, they've had the SANE exam. All of that is done, and now we're doing our jobs. We're prosecuting. We're going after bad people. And our police crisis intervention has been at least and so now where does Winged Hope come in the services that you offer?
So then at that point, it's really just family by family, right? What does this family need? And so very often with children, we can help provide some trauma-informed therapy. So if it's a child, and again, there are therapists out there, and I know that some organizations provide some therapy. That's usually a set number of sessions. And like even with DCS, sometimes we get cases from DCS. They provide therapy, but there's a lot of turnover. It's not very consistent. So we provide, we have about 20 different trauma-informed therapy groups around the Valley that we outsource to, that I selected myself because I always want to be able to say that it's someone I would send my own children to. And if I wouldn't, I would never send someone else's children there. And so we do that. And then we will pay for some sessions of trauma-informed therapy for children. We come in and help the parents. So I love books. Again, growing up, I didn't have a lot of guidance. And so I learned a lot of things from books. And so we have these wonderful books that we will give. So we'll give books to the parents, for example, of a child sexual assault survivor, the non-offending parent, and make sure that they have a book. Like there's a wonderful book about the process that goes on and what happens when your child discloses sexual assault. I actually think that's the title of the book, what to do when your child discloses sexual assault. And it walks them through what the process looks like. And then I have another book that I give that just kind of gives scenarios of possible questions that children might ask or behaviors that might come up, and gives parents tools to be able to walk with them through that. And then we're just there as advocates ourselves to listen, because I think a lot of times that's really what it is. Again, when we talk about hard things, a lot of times the general public literally covers their ears. Well, these families have now been immersed in this really hard, awful, ugly thing that nobody wants to talk about with them. Nobody wants to hear it. And so we are there to talk about it with them, to hear it, and to walk through it with them, because without ever covering our ears, without ever wincing when they say something, because we know that that's what they need. And so sometimes just walking through it with them is the piece that really helps the most. And again, what I love too, and one thing I'll never change about Winged Hope, and we don't get a lot of funding because we don't do as much tracking as everybody else. I don't ever make anybody fill out paperwork. And they come to us, and I have had people literally just start weeping when they're like, okay, what do I need to do? And when I say nothing, they weep because it's such a long process, right? And I mean, and agencies like you have to do paperwork, you have to track things, but like we don't. And so I will never do that. And I know we lose out on grants and things like that, but for me, it doesn't matter what their income is. It doesn't matter what their ethnicity is. It doesn't matter where they came. We're here to help, and we're here to walk through the process with them. No questions asked. And so it really looks like whatever they need it to look like. And I think too, what makes us different is that we're helping the whole family heal. So very often, when they come to an agency, like you can help the victim and you have funds for the victim, but you can't necessarily help the sister, right? Like I think of a case where we had a little boy who was being sexually assaulted by their neighbor. The sister walked in. We were able to provide therapy for the sister and the little boy because that sister, the trauma she now has, that was her friend, by the way, who was sexually assaulting her little brother. The trauma that she has and that she needs to process. And so what makes Winged Hope different is that we really wrap our arms around the whole family because we know if we're just healing a piece of the family, just the victim, there's trauma for everyone. And so we really try to address that for the whole family.
That's terrific. So you talked about grants and things like that you may or may not get because you don't, the paperwork and the colossal red tape and all of that.
I call it nonsense.
Yeah. It's your typical.
We don't do nonsense.
Right. It's your typical red tape nonsense. So how can the public support Winged Hope?
So we do, we have a lot of fundraisers that we do. One of the biggest things that we ask for, because we found that people like to give an actual thing. Like people love to give us toys, which we don't really need. But like everybody, and again, it's like the serving thing. Like if you get a mug, right? Like they want to give what they want to give. And it's like, well, I don't need a teddy bear.
Need that.
Yeah. But what I found, one of the things that we've asked for that has worked really well because they can give something tangible is gift cards.
Good.
So that works really well. Because at first when we started Winged Hope, we had like diapers and formula and all this stuff that we never really knew what we were giving to who or who was going to need what. So what we found is gift cards work really, really well. And so gift cards to Walmart where they could get groceries if they needed and other things that they need. We serve a lot of FSCs that also serve a high Native American population. And so again, we don't know what they're going to need. We don't know what they're going to have access to. And so I was just talking with one of the FACs down south, and we were saying, look, a Walmart gift card is a life changer for some of them sometimes. And, we'll provide dinner for a week or whatever they need. So we ask for gift cards a lot. And so we have a lot of people that will do gift card drives for us. And then, again, in our service to FACs, one of the biggest things for me has always been underwear. I always want to make sure all the FACs have underwear. And I always share why that is. And again, that's one of those, sometimes people cover
cringe.
their ears. Yeah,
absolutely.
But people need to hear that when you come to the FAC and you have a medical exam, and if there is evidence on that underwear, that underwear goes into an evidence bag. The moment that I decided that underwear needed to be our priority, I was at an FAC and there was a little evidence bag and there was Hello Kitty underwear in the evidence bag, and it broke my heart.
Absolutely.
And I was like, God, if they didn't have that baby's size underwear, then she's leaving with no underwear or the wrong size. And after already suffering the trauma that they've suffered, I want them to leave with the right size underwear. So we do underwear drives all the time to make sure all the FACs have underwear, bras, pants, because again, your clothes are likely going to go into an evidence bag. So those are the things that we ask for that I feel like the community can give that's not money, because not everybody has money to give. But we can use those things. We have an Amazon wish list that has a lot of our books that we give out a lot. And again, like with domestic violence cases, there are 2 books I give every single domestic violence victim we have. One is called Why Does He Do That? And it walks them through kind of why they might have fallen into this relationship. Again, not victim shaming, but educating and prevention for next time. And then we have one called When Dad Hurts Mom. because a lot of times we find that DV victims stay for their children.
Yep.
That yellow book I give them shows them that staying is the worst thing you can do for that baby. And I share with them the statistics that witnessing domestic violence is the single greatest predictor of juvenile delinquency and adult criminality, and share with them the lifelong trauma that's going to happen if they stay. And they're often staying for them, they think. And that yellow book I give them shows them like the lifelong damage that's going to happen to their babies if they stay. So books are huge for me too. But
one of the things I like, and one of the reasons we wanted to have you on as a guest, is we don't shy away from difficult topics. We talk about a lot of cool things, but a lot of things that they're like cringeworthy, or they're like wince.
But we have
to.
We
have to. We pull no punches here.
Now that's a wrap with the serious questions, but before we jump into today's 4 Reels questions, if you or someone you know could benefit from Jessica's foundation, or if you'd like to make a donation, please visit wingedhope.org. That's Winged Hope, WINGEDHOPE.org.
All right, so this is our section that we call 4 Reels. Just kind of give anything that pops into your head with the questions. They're not overly difficult, but we'll see what you guys got. So our first one is, what is your favorite seat on the airplane?
Aisle. Absolutely aisle.
No, why?
Well, because I'm 6'1.5", 215 pounds. I'm not interested in wedging myself up against the window, or worse yet, the middle seat with no legroom. I have long legs. The aisle is also my best avenue of escape. If I have to deal with somebody in the, in the airplane. So
where?
I also choose the aisle.
Okay.
But see, again, I have to get serious, because for me, I grew up with something called temporal lobar seizures, epilepsy, but because my daddy was drunk all the time, he never took me to the doctor. So I was undiagnosed till I was 18. And for whatever reason, and basically it just make me kind of confused in my brain. Everything kind of turns around. I get lost a lot. And for whatever reason on airplanes, they're really bad. And if I look out the window, it makes it worse.
Yeah.
Really?
And so then I'm lost in the airplane. And so I always sit on the aisle for that reason. But also what Chief said, when I sit on the airplane, I watch as people come to see who else is going to be a helper. And sadly, that number has dwindled as time has gone on. Like there's like 2 other people maybe besides me. And so I always like to see like, where's that other guy that I know is going to be a helper?
Totally.
Yeah. So
that's also why your next one was where in the plane. I like the wing, right on the wing area. There's an emergency exit. I don't trust anybody else on that airplane to open up the emergency exit if we needed to.
Yeah. Agree.
We just came back from Hawaii and watching people. I tell my son this all the time. Like I told you, he's 6'7", right? So we come in the plane and we all duck because we can't fit. And I said, the last time, the 5-hour flight, I turned to him, I go, hey, watch how many people try and make eye contact with you. And he's like, what? I was like, just do it. Just try and make as many eye contacts as you can. And he comes in, we sit in the seat, and he's like, yeah, like 4. Like people just avoid it. One, they don't want you to sit in this seat, whatever. But it's that diversion of don't look at anybody at all.
Most people want zero connectivity with other people.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Are there any specific animals that you are afraid of, and why?
I'm afraid of frogs.
Really?
Yeah. Like I'm fine with snakes. I love all animals, but for whatever reason, frogs creep me out. I think because like 1 minute they're here and the next minute they're on your face. Like I don't like that. So frogs.
I spend a lot of time in the backcountry, and so I'm not afraid of them, but I'm always wary of bears in the backcountry.
What kind of bears do we have here in Arizona?
In Arizona, exclusively we have black bears.
Okay.
Some will say, no, Chief, we have brown bears. No, they look brown. They make even black bears, that species of bear can have a cinnamon color or a brown looking color, but black bears are in Arizona.
Oh, see,
I'd
rather have a bear than a frog.
Yeah?
Yeah. I would love to
Most
see
bears,
a bear.
And honestly, the vast majority of bears are more afraid of human beings than we are of them, and they're very skittish. They don't want they don't want to be anywhere near you unless you startle them. You have a sow with her cubs.
Yeah, right.
My daughter, my youngest, who's 28, and her husband live in Whitefish, Montana, and the number of grizzly bears in that area, they're pretty thick. So
I watch How to Survive an Animal Attack and shows like that a lot, so I'm all set. I know what to do.
Good with it. The bear spray is probably not going to work.
Yeah, the bear. No.
Bear spray works.
But I know what
decent.
to do. I know what to do if the bear comes, and it's like all animals.
Get into a ball, cover your face and neck.
Yeah.
Run faster than the person next to you.
Yeah, but with a mountain lion, you're supposed to get big and make your arms
Yes.
big. Yeah, so I know what to do with each animal because I hope to come across them in the wild. Like I would love that.
I have come across.
Yeah. Not a
bears in the
frog,
wild.
but I would love to see the
Not often.
The
but
mountain lion is the only one I'm terrified of because I was on patrol at like D shift back in the days where it was at nighttime, and I remember looking over and seeing this big cat with this tail, and I'm in my patrol car, and I literally turn to my door and I just lock it. I'm like, I don't know what this thing's gonna do, but he's gonna get in and eat me.
He can't open your door.
He totally could.
He doesn't have opposable thumbs.
Jixie Cat did it in Meet the Parents.
Stop watching some.
That's right.
But that terrified me, and then I watched the thing jump up like 10 feet in the air.
Mountain lions are actually even more skittish
Yes.
and wary of people than bears.
Really?
Yeah, they want no part of you unless there's something wrong with them, and then they'll eat you.
Yeah.
Which one are you going to get?
It's pretty rare. Pretty rare.
All right, so it's October, and we kind of talked about this a little before the show, but what is your favorite Halloween candy?
I love all candy. I actually become obsessed with certain foods for certain times, and like I have to eat that like exclusively. Candy is Starburst, but that's not my favorite Halloween candy. That's just my food of the moment.
What kind of? They have like multiple.
Oh, I like become a little obsessed again. Like I'm a 9 out of 10 on the aces. I remember what I should be. So yeah, don't judge me. But like I buy all the Starbursts and then I pick out the yellow and eat the yellow and the pink. And there's a new flavor called Fruit Punch that's delicious. And so I only eat those. So then in my cabinet for everyone else to enjoy are the reds and the orange. Yeah.
So that's going to become their favorites.
Yes.
I think that we'd call that OCD, right?
Yeah.
A little.
I know.
I have it too. Snickers. You know, the bite-sized Snickers.
Oh, the tiny ones.
Yeah.
I always
not the full bar, but not the little squares.
Oh,
They're more like the
mini.
The
They call it
minis.
mini.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
the rectangle ones. Snickers.
Did you guys ever like find that house when you were trick-or-treating that was like, oh, that's the king-size candy
100%.
bar?
100%.
Every year you go to that one.
Full-size candy bar. And you know how much money that is right now?
Oh, yeah.
So we go trick-or-treating every year with our grandkids. And so I'm always on the lookout like, hey, who's got the full-size Snickers bar?
Do you know they sell them now like in a pack of full-size, like with the other bags of Halloween candy?
Oh, really?
You can be the person who buys the full-size
You can
bars.
be that house.
Yeah.
I love Halloween too. So what is the best costume that you've ever worn? And please, outfit doesn't count because how many Halloweens do we have to wear?
This is today. I would be accused of cultural appropriation, which was wrong. My wife is part Mexican, Yaqui Indian, Puerto Rican on her mom's side, and German Irish on her dad's side, which is quite the angry and aggressive combination. Sorry, honey. I dressed up one year in 2000 on a Halloween cruise. She dressed up. I dressed up as like an Indian chief, and she was dressed up as a squaw, and that was perfectly acceptable back in 2000.
Yeah.
Today, I'd be accused of cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
But it was a super cool costume.
Yeah. I've been Pocahontas. I was Jasmine. Jasmine was probably my